Stocking your shelves with a no sugar option jam is extremely important if you happen to have people in your family, or maybe you, who are diabetic or need to cut out sugars. Now, I have lots of recipes showing how to do low sugar options and no pectin options, but I've had a lot of you ask for a complete no added sugar option, so we are going to be making that today. Now, first up, we've got our strawberries. Strawberry jam is the very first jam that I ever learned how to make because it was my husband's absolute favorite jam. And his grandma, every single year for Christmas, we would get a box. And inside the box, there would be strawberry jam, pickled jardine, I always say that wrong, where it's like the pickled cauliflower and peppers, and then regular pickles and popcorn balls. So every year, like, everybody in the family just waited for grandma to bring out the box. And we would usually only get about 4 jars of strawberry jam. And so we would try to stretch those 4 jars because it was so good, right? And you didn't want to be without it. So finally, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I need to learn how to make strawberry jam. So instead of going down to grandma's and actually taking a lesson from her on making strawberry jam, I'm just going to wing it. So I got my little box of pectin and I'm like, well, we want a lot of strawberry jam because I'm tired of running out or not being able to have as much as we want to make these jars last. And I'm just going to make a triple batch. Well, if you've ever used regular pectin, which is not the pectin that we're going to be using today, but like Sure-Gel or the boxes of pectin, you can't triple them. They won't set. So I ended up with a triple set of literal strawberry syrup. And when I was putting it in the jars, I'm like, well, it looks a little runny, but I bet when it cools, it's going to get thicker. I'm pep talking my way through this. And so I process all of them in the water bath and wait the 24 hours to check the seals, and they all sealed. And then I put 1 jar in the fridge because I'm like, okay, like, here's our strawberry jam. It was literal syrup. And so I, of course, am like, I just don't understand, like, what went wrong. Like, I followed the instructions and I'm like, there must have been something wrong with that pectin. And my husband's like, or you just did it wrong. And yes, we're still married. And I'm like, I didn't do it wrong. There's something wrong with the pectin. Well, then, of course, grandma's like, honey, you can't triple it. It won't turn out. So I went down and learned how to make jam from grandma, and now I don't have that issue anymore of making strawberry syrup unless that's actually what I want to make. But the good news is with the pectin that we're going to be using today, you can triple it and it will still turn out if you want to make big, large batches, which is one of the reasons that I use it. But first up, we actually need to get our strawberries prepped. Now, at the time of this making, very few strawberries are still in season. We have 1 field because we had a super cold spring that's still producing strawberries. So these are actually frozen strawberries, but oftentimes I freeze my fruit so that I can make my jam and jellies out of it later when I have time. So you want to make sure that they are fully thawed. And then we're going to measure out, we want 6 cups blended. I do them up chunky because I like extra, chunks of fruit in my jam, but these are whole. So we're going to get 6 cups of blended fruit here. So this is 3 cups. We're gonna dump this into our jam making pot and then do 1 more for 6 cups total. Like I said, you wanna make sure you don't completely liquefy it. You can smash it up further than this or use like a potato smasher if you don't have a food processor or a blender, but I still like to have some good chunks of berries in my jam. So once you have your berries measured out, we are going to be adding our calcium water. And you may be wondering, what on earth is calcium water? Well, that is part of Pomona's pectin. When I said that the pectin that I use now, you can double or triple, and it's the only store-bought pectin that I use. And this video and recipe is sponsored by Azure Standard. Now, I have been getting my Pomona's pectin It comes in a little box, and I usually can only find it sometimes at our local food co-op and usually online. So this is what it looks like in the box. However, Azure Standard carries it. I was just going through their site and I didn't know that they carried it. I had ordered a bunch a couple years ago to stock up on it, and they actually have it in bulk. So you can bet your strawberry jam that I'm gonna be getting mine in bulk now that I realize they carry it. But when you get it, you get a packet inside that has your pectin, and it comes in an amount of powdered pectin, and you just measure that out for however many cups of berries you have. So this recipe I've already done for you. And then there's a packet of powdered calcium that you add to water, and you just mix it up and you just keep it in the fridge, and it keeps for months. So this is the calcium water. The beautiful thing is it uses calcium water instead of sugar that reacts with the pectin in order to get your set. And so you can therefore double it, triple it, quadruple it, however much you want to do, and you do not have to add added sugar in order to get a set, which is how we're going to be making this today. However, if you are using, we are going to be doing stevia, which is a approved sweetener to use when it comes to canning. And if you happen to watch the video that I had go up a couple of weeks ago, you may have seen it come up in your YouTube feed, and it was on doing no sugar, no added sugar strawberry jam, and then you saw that it was gone when you went back to watch it. Well, that's because I had used a sweetener that was a mix of stevia, erythritol, and monk fruit. And I knew that erythritol, stevia, and xylitol had been approved in canning recipes. And I inaccurately assumed that monk fruit was too, because I was looking at those, the alternate sugars that use like for keto or sugar alcohols, because I don't use anything that's aspartame or Splenda or any of those types of things. I try to only use natural sweeteners. Well, I, in error, thought that monk fruit was an approved sweetener. And somebody pointed out, I don't think monk fruit has been approved for canning, and they were absolutely right. And so once I saw that, I had to pull the video and make sure that I got that correction made and let all of you guys know that as well, because it's one of those things, monk fruit, it's not been tested, so we don't know if it can affect the pH level or the set after it's been canned and is on the shelf. So we don't know that it isn't safe, but we don't know that it is safe. And I only can by the book. I only can by what we do know for sure with tests. And so anyways, just a little bit of backstory there if you were wondering what happened. So we need to bring this, after we have mixed our calcium water in with our fruit, we're going to bring this to a boil. But when you are doing like we're doing today, which is stevia, a liquid sweetener, you actually are going to boil either water and or fruit juice. So I have some of the strawberry juice, which is the great thing if you are making, using frozen fruit to do your jams and jellies. It releases its juice really, thawed berries, right? They're gonna release a lot more juice than when they're fresh. So I actually prefer to use with frozen and then thawed berries if I need to get the juice out of it for jellies or jams. So we have measured out here 1 cup and 1/8 fruit juice, which is the strawberry juice that was just brought to a boil. And we're going to put this into our blender here. And now we are going to be adding our pectin. So this is the powdered pectin, and you want to make sure that it's fully immersed and dissolved. And so that's why we're going to go ahead and add this because we don't have any dry sugar. Normally, if you're using sugar with Pomona's pectin or a dry granular form of sweetener, you will mix this in with it so it's evenly dispersed. But because we are using liquid stevia, we need to add this to the boiled water and or juice, which I use juice because it's just going to naturally give it more flavor. So we're going to add our pectin here. So now that we have that blended, we are going to go ahead and add our stevia extract. So this is an organic brand of stevia extract. I get it from Azure Standard. We'll have a link beneath this video as well as a coupon code. So if you are new to using Azure Standard, a brand new customer, and you place a $50 order, you will get 10% off using the coupon code. So we'll have that link below this video for you. So I am going to add, for this volume, I'm going to start with 2 dropperfuls. So stevia is extremely concentrated, so we're just gonna use a small amount. And I don't like an overly sweet jam anyways. I like just a little bit. I like to really taste the fruit flavor. But if you add too much stevia, sometimes stevia is known for having a little bit of a bitter aftertaste. So we're just gonna start with those 2 dropperfuls first. We're gonna add that to here. We're gonna give this one more spin. And then our berries just hit a boil, so we're gonna add it all together, and then we'll do a taste test. Okay, so we just hit a simmer here on our berries. Okay, so we are just gonna add this in. And now we wanna stir this to make sure it's fully incorporated, and then you're going to let this boil for just 1 to 2 minutes. If you go beyond 2 minutes, you actually can not inactivate the pectin, but it gets too hot, and then you actually can make it not set if you overboil it too long. So just 1 to 2 minutes once it's back at a full boil. And then I am going to do just a small taste test here to see if I think we need to add any more of the stevia. And again, this is absolutely to whatever your personal taste preference is. So start small because you can always add more. I think I'm gonna add a little bit more. There we go. Okay, and now we are bubbling again. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 2 minutes. That's just about perfect. Like I said, I don't like it on the really, really sweet side, so that is just about right. And we don't have any added sugar in this, so I'm not as worried about it scorching as if I was making jam where I was adding in regular sugar. But there are still the natural sugars in the berries, so I'm gonna be stirring this occasionally during our time. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and turn off our burner. Our 2 minutes has elapsed. Now here I've got the canning jars. These have been washed in hot soapy water. Same with our lids. And so these are ready to begin filling. And for jam, it is a 1/4 inch headspace. So we're gonna get this filled. And then we'll go ahead and, let's see, get that checked. And I love this, it's a headspace measuring tool along with this, helps you get the air bubbles out. So first we're gonna see I'm not quite at a 1/4 inch, really close. And then now we're gonna go like this to remove any air bubbles that are in there. And then we're gonna recheck our headspace. And usually you'll get some of the air bubbles out, which is the purpose of doing that. And you may have to add just a wee bit more to keep it right at that headspace. And headspace is important for as the jar vents and seals. So you wanna make sure that you're doing your headspace correctly. We're gonna go ahead and wipe this rim clean so that nothing inhibits the seal. Lids go on, and then we're going to go down to fingertip tight only. If you over tighten, you can cause lid buckling, and if your lid buckles during processing, then it is not shelf stable. So here I have the steam canner that we've got prepared, and you can use a steam canner for any water bath acidic recipe. So they have been approved for water bath recipes. I love it because it uses way less water, takes less time to heat up, uses less energy, and it's much easier for me to move because I'm not doing, you know, when you're water bath canning, the level of the water has to be 1 to 2 inches over the top of the jars. So you can see that's a lot larger volume of water that's needed. But with the steam canner, it's just 1 inch. So I didn't actually have quite enough to meet the headspace for this pint jar. So I had a couple smaller jars in reserve ready to go. So we just got these filled and bubbles removed and headspace. And then the small amount that's left in that pint jar will just go straight into the fridge for immediate use. And now these we are going to get processing. So with the steam canner, go ahead and get that lid on. And then we're going to turn that up. And then for steam canning, I do have a video that walks through using this, but you do want to get a steam canner that has this knob on it because it lets you know when the steam, it's not pressure canning, but it lets you know when the internal temperature with the steam has reached the processing point, and that's when you begin your time. So for these, we're going to be processing them for 10 minutes. Now the full printable and written instructions for this recipe, actually went ahead and printed it out ahead of time, you can grab on my website. We'll have a link below that, and then you can just grab the printable version so you don't have to worry about writing down all of the exact amounts and times. So our 10-minute processing time is up, so we're gonna go ahead and turn that timer off. This is where using a steam canner is slightly different than the water bath canner, and in the written recipe I have instructions for both, but you're going to turn off your heat. With the steam canner, you're going to leave the lid on for 5 minutes. This is actually part of the processing time with the steam canner, so you don't omit this step. Turn off the heat, lid stays on for an additional 5 minutes. With water bath canning, you turn off the heat and then you remove the lid. You don't need to leave that lid on for the additional 5 minutes, but you do with the steam canner. So our 5 minutes has elapsed, so we're gonna go ahead and remove our lid. And you always want to move it away from you just to block any steam. And then we're going to use our jar lifters and put this on a towel that's been folded in thirds to avoid any type of thermal shock, and let these seal. So we'll let these sit undisturbed for 24 hours, and then we'll go ahead and check the seals, and as long as all of these have sealed, then we will go ahead and put them on our shelves so that we are well stocked up with all of our fruit preserves for the year. Now, if you want to get all of my recipes, including no pectin, low sugar, with sugar, every single preserving recipe that I have, you can go and snag my book, Everything Worth Preserving, right now on pre-order for the paperback copy, and get the digital copy free with some other bonuses. So we'll have that link below.